Hello everybody. Some of you know that I'm a blacksmith, and some of you know that I also do some chuck wagon cooking and Dutch oven cooking. Well, today I got given a whole 3 containers of these cherry tomatoes that are very ripe, and I can't stand to see them go to waste, so we're going to cut them up and make them into tomato sauce, pasta sauce. We're going to do it outside. We're going to do it on a camp stove, because everybody makes this cooking out to be such a hard deal. You need some pretty basic tools to do it. You need a couple of good tools, but you need some basic tools. As you can see, I'm just using a real cheap plastic cutting board. When you're going to the hills, you want to use a plastic cutting board because you can actually wash them off and get them clean. You can use a wood board, you can use a bamboo board, you can use whatever you want in your own house. But I think that if you're cooking outside where you're in the dirt and the dust and stuff, you know, it's hard to clean, I think that the plastic works the best. I'm quartering up these little tiny baby tomatoes, and I don't know how much of these I'm going to use. I'm literally using just an oversized pocket knife for this that I use specifically for cooking because I like the shape of it. It's kind of like a paring knife, but the one thing is it's super duper sharp. And again, I'm taking these little baby tomatoes, I'm quartering them up. And I don't know, that's probably what, 2.5 cups of them in each one of these. Now, if you get online and you look at some of the recipes that these guys do, they go insane with what they do. They boil the tomatoes, take the skins off of them. You know, we're not doing that. We're cooking. So I got a couple of more. I don't know, I might have to do a couple of sets of this because that's a lot of tomatoes. And I only have a small pan. So the one thing about this that you want to know is, do not use your cast iron skillet to do this. Repeat, do not use your cast iron skillet to cook tomatoes or tomato sauce in or tomato paste in. The acid in the tomatoes, it doesn't really matter how good you have your Dutch oven seasoned. You take the chance of eating the seasoning off of your Dutch oven, and you'll end up with an iron tasting sauce. And believe me, it's not great. Ask me how I know. I don't know, we might add some more to this, we'll see. So the key to this deal is having a good stove. And if you're cooking in the wind and you can't get out of the wind, you're going to have to have a good shield around your stove. This is an MSR Dragonfly. MSR Dragonfly. And the reason you want an MSR Dragonfly, or there's one other brand, but the thing about most of these stoves is you cannot simmer on them. They're either on or they're off. This is one of 2 stoves I've ever found yeah, you're funny. I smoke a Zero Smith, but you know what? Just because you're so freaking rude, goodbye. I'm doing this for the kids that don't think you can do this, that think that when they go to the hills, the only thing that they can eat is stuff that they've cooked in their jet boil. If you get to a place where you can actually take food with you and you want to impress a girl, or you want to actually eat something other than soup or boiled whatever you're getting, this is a great way to do this. So I just pumped this up. You want to make sure that you've got plenty of fuel, because you don't want to run out of fuel halfway through this deal. And you're definitely, because right now the wind's coming up, it's going to blow a little bit. Ideally, I'd be at a place where I could get out of the wind a little to do this. So, first thing first, you got to have a good pot, and you got to have a pot. You got to have a pot that has a good lid. Well, somewhere I lost the lid of this one, but no big deal. I'm a blacksmith, I made one. So, we need to brown an onion. This was the smallest damn onion that they had in the whole damn place. I don't need this much onion. I need about half this much onion. So I'm going to cut this onion right down the middle. If I can. That's more than I need. And it was just about on the end of its life, this son of a gun. Good thing about cooking onions outside is you don't cry. Okay, great big giant onion. I'm going to cut it with the into slices with the grain of the onion. So you want them to look like that. As thin as you can manage it. Having a sharp knife really helps. Then we're going to go across the onion the other way, and we're going to cut it into little tiny pieces. So I've already quartered up the onions, or quartered up the tomatoes, quartering up the onions. I have a butcher knife, one of my favorite knives here, but I don't want to use it. Okay, so this is the trick to this stove lighting deal. I'm going to open this up so you can watch this. So this is an MSR, is the company, Dragonfly. As far as I know, they still make them. So what you're going to do is you're going to turn this first valve on, you're going to turn the second valve on, and watch for fuel to come up into the little wick. Then you're going to shut it off. You're going to use a match or whatever to light it, and you're going to let it cook. It's got to get hot. And then you're very slowly, once it seems like everything's hot, you can catch everything on fire if you do this too fast. Because that's got to be hot, because we want it to, this is not the flame we want. The flame we want is that. Now see, that is kind of a simmering flame. But you can turn the gas up and you can boil a quart of water in a minute and a half. That's what makes this stove really great. Okay. Pan. We're going to let the pan get a little hot. Olive oil. We're going to let the pan get a little warm. I'm going to coat the base with about a nickel's height worth of olive oil. Now we're not very flat here, so this is more challenging. And of course, when you're in the hills, you're going to fight this, finding a flat place to put your stuff. So we're going to let it get hot. I'm going to turn that stove up a little bit. I'm going to test it with a piece of onion. When the oil's hot, that onion will start bubbling and cooking. There it goes. So I'm going to give it just a minute more. And I'm going to add all this onion. That's a lot of onion. Seems like it's a lot of onion. It will cook down. We're going to go caramelize these. The other trick, garlic in a tube. It's expensive. I think this was $5, but garlic in a tube. Yeah, I'm single, all right. And I plan on staying that way. Thank you. Thank you, though, for calling me handsome. This is Cody, Wyoming. So we're going to caramelize those. I might turn that up just a little more. Yeah, you want to impress a girl in the hills? Cook her homemade pasta sauce in hunting camp or in while you're camping. It won't take too long to reduce those. I'm running this stove on white gas, but the good thing about this stove is it'll run, it's got all kind of orifices and you can run it on anything. It'll run on diesel fuel, it'll run on kerosene, it'll run on regular gasoline, it'll run on alcohol. So we're going to caramelize up this sketchy onion. Now remember, you do not want to cook this in a Dutch oven. I do have a Dutch oven sitting right here, but you do not want to use it for this. So there's only about 5 ingredients in this, and most of the stuff you're going to bring to camp with you anyway. A little sugar. I do have some basil. I didn't bother with the oregano. You can use oregano if you want to. So the thing about a small stove like this is you got to use a small pan, because if you use a pan with a big bottom, you'll end up with one hot spot right in the middle. We're going to add quite a bit of this. We're going to add, this says 1 teaspoon equals 1 clove of garlic. So we're going to guess it. Now if it's really cold and you're having a hard time with this, that's where your lid comes in. Let the heat build up a little bit. It's probably going to get down to the mid-40s tonight. So that might make this a little more challenging. But it's going to be worth it. want these to be nice and golden. We want them to be well cooked down. And if you want to see what size they are, that's the size. So, fingernail sized or less. Thanks for the likes. Nobody ever thought a blacksmith would be doing cooking classes. So when that gets cooked pretty close, 3/4 of the way done, we're going to add the garlic. You don't want to add the garlic at the same time because you don't want to burn the garlic. So don't add the garlic too soon. And as I'm cooking these, I'll show you what I want them to look like. Caramelized. They don't have to be all the way caramelized, but we want them to be broke down. They're not quite broke down yet. Tomatoes have a heck of a lot of moisture in them, so you shouldn't have to add much. If you really wanted to get fancy, you could add some wine, but generally I don't bother. I will be adding more oil as I go along. Before it all gets said and done, it'll probably be a 1/4 cup of oil by the time we get all done with this. So you gotta have a stove that'll simmer. Make sure you got plenty of fuel. The finer you cut up everything, the faster it'll cook. So generally you would just half these little cherry tomatoes, but I cut them into quarters because I want them to cook pretty fast. I didn't say I didn't have a girlfriend. We're cooking homemade tomato sauce. So we're just sautéing the onions right now. We've got a whole bunch of these very ripe cherry tomatoes that I've cut up. I've quartered them up. The thing about using one of these little stoves is you got to be real diligent, because of the heating element is so small. You always got to be moving your stuff around, or else you'll end up burning a fist-sized place on the bottom of it because of the heating element being so small. But we're starting to get there. They're just kind of turning now. So at this point, you could use real garlic if you wanted to, but we're using minced garlic paste. I'm going to add a teaspoon to start. Something about like that, maybe a little better than a teaspoon. I'm going to work that in. And I'm going to turn this pan because we're not sitting flat, so you always got to be aware of that. And I've got some dried basil here. Fresh would be better, but who's taking fresh basil into hunting camp? I'm going to add the basil at this point because I want that, because it's dried basil, I want that moisture. I want it to activate good now. I like a basil sauce. And there you can see those onions are starting to break down pretty good now. I'm going to give that just a minute more. Turn that pan around a little bit so we aren't cooking the same spot. I might add, at this point, I might add just another pinch of olive oil. Half a teaspoon or something like that. A little more lid time. How's everybody doing? We'll see how these tomatoes cook down. I might add another. I've got 3 of these, so I might add another one. We'll kind of see how this goes. You're kind of limited on your pan size. Hello, good evening, Eric Estrada. We're doing Mountain Man cooking here on the back of the truck outside the blacksmith shop. There, now they're really wilty. See how they're getting wilty? That's what you want. You want them really wilty. You don't want them crunchy. You want them to be soft. Tomatoes. Probably added too much onion, but oh well. Just a little more olive oil, another little 1/4 tablespoon of olive oil. And as this fuel goes down, you'll have to pump the stove up. And then, for moisture, put the lid back on that. I love this little pot. Did you see my fancy lid I made? So to speed this process up some, we're going to use a set of some canned tomatoes. We're going to use the juice. We're going to put the whole thing in. That's the best can opener money can buy right there. It's on my Leatherman tool. If you're going to take one tool with you into the hills, that's the tool. Now this is going to slow down the cooking process a lot. So you want to make sure you've got this where you want it. Might be able to get away with adding one more tomato. Now, if these tomatoes are really acidy, if the tomatoes are really acidy, hello, we're going to add about a tablespoon of sugar. And that'll help kill that acid in that sauce. Plastic spoons. Stand by, I gotta go get another utensil. You want something fairly stout because as this cooks down, you're going to kind of crush these tomatoes up as they cook. I think I might be able to get one more tomato in there. I'm going to add a little more basil too. Okay, so now we're going to leave that, and we're just going to kind of roll it around a little bit. I'm going to let everything get up to temperature, and then I'll test it again. You're from Maine, I'm from Cody, Wyoming. It's cool here. My hands are starting to get cool. Cut up another tomato or 2 or 3 or 5 to put in here. I got room in the pot. I need to use them up. I don't want them to go bad. If I can get the damn thing. Alright, I will. So I'm just using little baby cherry tomatoes that are super ripe. And I'm going to quarter them up. But if you weren't having to pack this stuff in on your back, this is actually a very easy meal that you could make in hunting camp. And I just wanted to show everybody that this is something that you could do fairly easily. And it sure beats the hell out of eating out of a jet boil every day. Eating freaking mountain meals. MREs. I'm kind of a big Dutch oven cooker, but this is not something that you want to cook in a Dutch oven. Okay, it's starting to boil a little bit, just in the center. We're starting to get a little boiling. Those tomatoes aren't crushing up yet. It's going to be good. But we're going to have to cook the hell out of those tomatoes. We didn't add any fluid to that at all. And you can see there's plenty of moisture in there. That little bit of sugar really helped. And that's our tomatoes, that's our sauce. Now you just let it cook and cook and cook. So for me tonight, this is ready-made pasta. This is ready, fully made cooked pasta. They actually are doing this now with rice. A lot of the Indian, Asian food is cooking it this way. I think these are a great thing to take if you're hunting. I think they're supposed to be made used in the microwave. I dump them out and put them in a pan. You'd heat them in a pan. Okay, let's see what we got here. It's not quite boiling. Now we wait. You got to make sure you don't burn this though, because that element is so small on the bottom. You really want to make sure that you're turning your pan and rolling everything from the outside in. You'll get that foam around the outside, and you want to make sure that you roll that into the inside of that pan. You also want to make sure that you got your pan sit even on your cooker. Questions? Hello, I'm from Cody, Wyoming. We're cooking in the parking lot. We're doing real, honest-to-goodness cooking on a camp stove on the back of my truck in the parking lot of the blacksmith shop. I'm teaching these young guys how to cook, hopefully. That's my goal. Don't just be a one-trick pony. Going to be good when those tomatoes cook down. Once the tomatoes get cooked down, you can get in there and you can just crush them up. As you cook them, you'll crush up those tomatoes with a spoon. You don't have to puree them. You don't have to do that. That's silly. No need for that. It looks like I'm going to have to do this again. Good thing I got another can. I highly recommend these stoves. They're a super good stove. I've used the heck out of this one. And they're super efficient. One of those cans of fuel, if you're cooking twice a day, will last you a week or better. But trying to find a stove that you can simmer with is the hard part. I think there's only 2 different. See, now that's kind of boiling now. Those tomatoes are going to break up pretty good. Now you can cook your pasta in a Dutch oven, no problem, but don't cook your sauce in a Dutch oven. So how long did that take? Let's see. 36 minutes and we've got pasta made. You could serve it right now if you wanted to, but if you cook, the longer you cook it, the softer the tomatoes get, the better it is. If you were someplace where you had a campfire going, you could set up this, you could set this up. I don't really like boiling water in my Dutch ovens. I think it scalds out your seasoning on the inside. Stem. Hope that wind goes down when the sun dies. We've had a heck of a... It's been pretty windy around here the last week. We've had some real weather come in. Well, thanks for coming in, everybody. I appreciate it. Once you get this cooked, you can leave it. I don't mind having it on eggs in the morning. Like you could do an omelet, take a little of this sauce, put in your egg with a little cheese, little tomato omelet. Delish, man, delish. Coming up down my neck. See how they're starting to break down? It'll be better tomorrow. It's good now, but it'll be better tomorrow. Okay, I'm ready. I got the pasta right there, Mark. I got all these tomatoes I got to use up. I've even got French bread. These boys got to learn how to cook. You can't live on pancakes alone. You can stew. Gotta know how to cook a little. Now it's starting to look like sauce. I'm just kind of going in there and crushing those tomatoes up on the bottom. I got that stove up pretty high. Remember what I said about adding a little bit of olive oil? I'm just going to kind of keep putting that in. Yeah. You know, I hate eating these damn little tomatoes like this, but boy, they sure do make good sauce. They're almost like a little miniature Roma, and they're very flavorful and good. Stand by for a minute. I personally think that the extra weight room of taking one of these style cookers is well worth it, because you can cook so much better and more stuff if you have a real stove. And there's something to be said for morale. There's something to be said for morale. Who needs pasta? Wow! Sometimes I amaze myself. Yeah, it ain't real warm here. That wind is coming up out of the east, which is strange. Well, we're running out of sunlight here. you can see, those tomatoes have really cooked down. Another 15 minutes, it'd be totally mushy, good sauce. Yeah, it really hasn't started here yet, but it's getting cool in the evenings. I haven't kicked the heater on in the shop yet. You want to impress a girl? I just gave you a surefire way. When you go camping, you take your girlfriend camping, you make this, you get some mozzarella string cheese. You do a little pasta up or a chicken breast. You put that on top of that chicken breast with some slices off of some mozzarella string cheese. So now I'm going to turn that down. And here's where this stove comes in. It will simmer. You know, a Coleman stove will simmer, but like all those single jet boils, you can't simmer anything on one of those. They're either on or they're off. And so for doing real cooking, this is the most minimum way I've ever found to be able to actually cook, is this stove. And I know there's one other company that makes a stove pretty similar to this one. I don't think I'm even going to cook any pasta. I think I'm just going to do bread and sauce tonight. That is ridiculous. That is absolutely ridiculous. So let's see, how many ingredients? Tomatoes, olive oil, little basil, little sugar, some salt if you need, and 1 can of petite diced tomatoes with the juice out of the inside. And don't get any of that funny stuff with the jalapenos and stuff in it. and a fairly expensive stove. These stoves aren't cheap anymore. I think I paid $40 for this one about 10 years ago. Thanks for the likes, everybody. If you're trying to impress your hunters, if you're taking hunters in, if you're taking fishing, guiding fishing trips in, we're just about an hour here. You could pre-cook the pasta, put the pasta in a Tupperware, make the sauce crick side, pour this over the cold pasta, or get a baguette and just put it over a baguette like I'm doing here. Italian style. The only thing that would make it better is maybe a little Reggiano Parmesan. A little Parmesan cheese on top. The bad part is, it's really hard to get here. All you can do is get the Kraft's, we call it rat cheese. It ain't worth a darn. You almost got to go to a specialty store to get it. Well, you can cook this till your heart's content. You can just keep going in there and breaking that down like that. Kind of mashing the tomatoes in the bottom. But you can see it's turned into a sauce now. I wish you guys could taste it, because you would be impressed that an old gray-haired, whiskered blacksmith could cook something as delicious as that on the back of his pickup truck. That's a tip getter right there. Shit, you could make that sauce. You could probably make that sauce and put that over some fish. It wouldn't even be bad. Pan fry some fish. I've never thought of that. I've never been much of a fish eater, but you could probably pan fry, especially if you could like crust it, like encrusted fish, with some like, we used to do brook trout. You could put that on there. Pan fry those brook trout. Put a little of that sauce on top of them. It would almost make eating that fish bearable. Well, we're running out of sunlight. We're just about an hour in. Thanks for the likes, everybody. I appreciate it. Thanks for coming and watching me build my favorite tomato sauce. If you like the content, please subscribe. We tend to do different stuff on the live streams than we do with my regular content. If you like it, please subscribe, interact. I'm gonna eat this last. I'm not even gonna do pasta. I'm just gonna eat this bread, the rest of this bread with this pasta sauce, just like this. I'll let this cool off. Once it gets cool, I'll put it in the fridge, and it'll be twice as good tomorrow. I guess I'm going to have to make another batch up tomorrow because this won't last. Thanks, everybody. Get it hot and hit it. Always receive consequences. If you like the content, slip over to the Cody Ironworks Etsy store and share some love. We build all kinds of stuff over there. Thanks, everybody. Have a great evening.